Thank you for being my audience today. I'm going to go over something about proper shooting technique in regards to pistols, semi-automatics only today, no revolvers. As you all know, I'm a licensed concealed carry instructor in the state of Arkansas, as well as a licensed pistol instructor and rifle instructor with the NRA. I have a few other certifications in there as well. I just want to go over proper pistol shooting technique because a lot of the times we go to the range and I see people just using the complete wrong technique, or they're being inaccurate, or they're being unsafe, or they just need to improve a little bit. So this is something that can help you all out. So the first thing I want to go over is stance. In regards to this, go over a lesson that my instructor, my mentor, Robert Jennings, he's the chief NRA instructor in the state of Arkansas. He taught me just a few little tricks and things to help you out. Namely, with your knees, you want to be bent a little bit and you want to have them shoulder width apart. When you have that balance and that nice stability, what do you think happens when you fire off your weapon? You're going to not rock as much. So it's very important to keep your knees adjusted, slightly bent to absorb that recoil of it, and your shoulder width apart. Okay. Now, another thing to do with stance is your arms. You don't want to lock them out, but you also don't want to have them too bent. You definitely don't want to be in a 90-degree angle or anything like that. You want to have just a slight bend as you're extending your arms out. If you lock them out, you're actually giving it less cushion to absorb that impact when it comes back into your arms and into your shoulders. Next thing I want to go over with you all is grip. Grip is extremely important, and it's probably second only to sight alignment in terms of firing and having an effective round down range and hitting your target where you want to hit it. So this right here comes from the NRA Basic Pistol Instructor Course Guidelines. This is what we're taught to teach you. Most importantly is hand over hand. So you see a lot of people, when they shoot a lot of funky ways, they'll do the old teacup technique where they've got one hand under the magazine well and another actually gripping the round. There's one, I can't even mimic it, and it's the old 80s cop version where they'll do that. And they somehow, I don't know, but they do this. And what happens is when that slide comes back on a semi-automatic and it comes back forward, it's got a nasty little tendency of grabbing a piece of flesh and taking it off with it. Extremely painful. I've seen people do it. I've seen people use bad grip and they've actually gotten their fingers caught in the slide and had their finger bent over to where they now permanently have a bone going this way and their fingertip goes that way. So unless you want to be deformed, I'd highly recommend against it. Next is your thumbs interlaced. So don't have your thumbs doing this. Don't just have them nice interlaced like so. What that does is it just kind of secures both hands together. So when you're gripping, you want to have a nice cup around it. Both hands placed on top of each other. One hand, the hand that's holding the firearm, and the other one wrapped around it, holding it secure. Both thumbs interlaced on the left side of it, or right if you're left-handed, of course. When you do this, what you get is a much more effective grip. Combined with that stance makes you much more stable. It's more like firing a rifle versus firing a pistol, which has less room for you to absorb that recoil. Next, we're going to go over aim. One I want to use for this is the Arkansas State Police Concealed Carry Guidelines. What the Arkansas State Police did is they basically went to the NRA and they developed their instructor's course based off what the NRA says. To actually be an Arkansas State Police licensed concealed carry instructor, you have to be an NRA instructor or some equivalent of that certification. So with that, with them, this is the law of the land in the state of Arkansas. It's what every concealed carry instructor will teach you. So alignment, if you've ever looked down the pistol, you have a rear sight post and a front sight post. On that rear sight post, you have two little dots, one on the left and a right. On that front sight post, if it's lined up correctly, you have a little dot dead even with those three in the middle. And not on every pistol, some might be little squares or something like that. But you'll have every one of them the same way. When you are lining that up, you want to make sure that circle isn't too high above those back two. So you don't want it up like this, you don't want it down like this, you don't want it left, you don't want it right. Why do you do that? If you have it too low, you're going to shoot low. If you have that front one too high, you're going to shoot too high, and so on and so forth. It's pretty easy to understand. However, it's vital that you don't just try to aim right off that front sight post either, because if you don't have it aligned with the rear, you might still think you're on target and somehow be above or beyond. So you want to make sure you line it up all the way down the middle, three little dots, nice, perfectly in line, and kind of flush out those tops, okay? Now, of course, with a pistol, depending on your range, you're probably never going to be extremely accurate depending on what you're firing. Revolvers are a little more accurate than, say, a semi-automatic, especially in 20 rounds at 15 yards. You're going to have some little bit of grouping there. In fact, usually you'll have a 6-inch target, and that's really your qualification coming up. So lastly is trigger. With this, I'm going to use my own experience as the chief instructor for Triple Threat Arms and Supply. Also, my knowledge as being an instructor in the United States Army when I was teaching young soldiers how to shoot their pistols correctly. So you want to use the meat of your finger. You don't want to jam your finger all the way through that trigger and be firing here on this knuckle. You want to fire right here. You want to get not off the tip, not too far back, just right in the middle, that meaty part. Do that because it gives you a natural cushion to that trigger. It doesn't allow you to, I don't know, the bone in a way just kind of will cause you to pull or throw around basically. When you throw around, that means it just went off target. And the reason most of the time is because somebody fired with either the tip or too far in. If you fire with the tip, you usually pull off to the right. If you fire too far in, you usually go to the left because you're putting too much weight on that trigger, and it actually will sway your firearm just slightly especially when you fire, because you're paying a little less attention at that point to what your finger's actually doing versus you're trying to prepare yourself for the bang. That's the common mistake we see is everybody just doesn't expect that bang. They get nervous and they end up jerking around and it goes left or right. If you fire with the meat, it's a nice even squeeze pull through. And when you do that, you're going to get a straight round down the middle. And if you combine everything you've learned here, these basic steps, 9 out of 10 times, you're going to hit exactly where you want within a 6-inch grouping that we're going to do later on the range. Lastly is your natural pause. Your breathing. When you fire, you want to inhale, exhale. That natural break you take in between breaths is where you want to squeeze all the way through, and you want to put that round out. If you pull it too hard, if you try to force it, or if you hold your breath, you're going to start shaking, and the next thing you know, you're going to pull around, you're going to throw it somewhere you shouldn't, or you're going to get off target completely, especially in a concealed carry situation. If you're an active shooter and engaged, the last thing you want to do is miss your target and hit somebody behind it or something you shouldn't hit behind it. That's a big thing we see as instructors is people, when they don't know how to properly aim, stand, or fire in general, they hit and they end up possibly hitting an innocent bystander behind their target or causing more danger than they're actually taking away. Now, instead of one person being a bad guy shooting, you have one person being a bad guy shooting, and you have a negligent person trying to be good, but what good is an untrained person in defending you? All right. I'd like to thank you all for joining me today, and I look forward to meeting you with y'all next time to go over proper rifle technique. Thank you.